We had just won a World Cup. And so we're just like celebrating. It's been amazing. We have like confetti everywhere in our hair. The door shuts, the Sprinter van starts going, and like it's silent. We just had the highest high of our lives.
Yeah.
And then it's just like done.
When there's that high, it's almost immediately followed by that low.
That low is so low. I feel like I should have been fulfilled and I feel so empty.
We don't talk about what happens after.
It's like a free fall. There's no support when you're done.
Are you an athlete, Katie Donnelly?
I'm active. I was just a kid and did after school sports.
What sports did you play growing up?
Oh my gosh, everything. You know what I mean? Like I didn't like, it was cool. I went to like state championships.
After school sports specialist only.
One thing that I've noticed in my 11 years of working in professional sports, there is this notion that like,
Today on No Former Athlete podcast, we're joined by Olympic gold medal, World Cup winning athletic trainer, Katie Donnelly. Katie reveals how she transitioned from being an active kid who tried every sport imaginable to being a vital part of the support staff for professional athletes on the world stage. She shares her conflicted experience immediately following a World Cup victory and opens up about the complexities of athlete identity, including the extreme highs and lows that often go hand in hand with competition. We discuss the camaraderie and the sense of purpose often found in sport, Katie's insight into the physical and the emotional tolls of injuries, the sacrifices made for the grueling schedule on the road, and the process of finding a new identity after sport.
Are you an athlete, Katie Donnelly?
I'm active. In between my naps.
Okay.
I don't think I'm an athlete. I don't. I think that I have never... Oh, that's not true. I think I did identify as an athlete, like, growing up.
Mm-hmm. You wrote athlete down when they said write 5 adjectives.
I did.
Yeah.
It's so true.
You wrote it down. I know you did.
I did.
You did.
Yeah, I don't think I consider...
Kind.
Yeah.
Athlete. Hard worker.
Yeah. I think part of it is, like, I lift.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's interesting as I'm like calling you out for being like defining it.
Yes.
No, I'm just eating
Welcome
my own words.
to my podcast.
Yeah, like I don't compete and stuff. I also think that I hold so much space for the population that I work with that like
roles are very defined.
Yeah, for sure.
You work in the professional athlete space. You work with people who are literally, that's their professional
that's
job.
their job.
That's their job.
Yeah.
So you are part of the support staff for said job as an athletic trainer.
Yeah.
But
what
activities, what sports did you play growing up?
Oh my gosh, everything. I was like, had a very loving mother who drove me all around. Softball, volleyball, tennis, soccer. I rode horses and competed in horses, and you did a little lacrosse, basketball.
You didn't consider yourself an athlete growing up?
I did, but it's not like that was never really an identity of mine. And like, sure, I played in school, but like I was on varsity all 4 years because there's only one team and it was the varsity team. But like, you know what I mean? And so it's like, it's not like I was on like AAU growing up or like in a competitive thing. Part of that was like, my mom was like, there are 4 of you and 1 of me and I can't just keep driving everybody everywhere. So, like, you know what I mean? Like,
so you guys need to find some common interest, and I need to drop all of you off at practice at the same time.
I went to like a very small high school, so I wasn't like trying to get on college teams or anything. But I sort of, when I went to college, I was like, do I like try out for the soccer team? Or I kind of always knew I wanted to go into the sports medicine space. And so I was like, or do I go into athletic training or physical therapy? And so I applied to all my colleges, like all the colleges that I applied to had athletic training as a major or some adjunct of that. And so that was also a way for me to be like, well, I don't really think I'm like good enough to be on like the college team, but I still want to make an impact in this space anyway, because there's a lot of value that I found in and identity in the sports world.
Yeah. Miss, I played all these sports growing up. I played all these different things. You had all these different experiences. If anyone else, if I were to go ask someone from your high school, if you were an athlete in high school, what would they say?
They would say, yeah.
Yeah. Katie Donnelly. Yeah, she plays all the sports. She's an athlete. Do you feel like some of your success as an athlete or how long you played your sport or things like that affects how much you identified as an athlete at the time?
I was just a kid and did after school sports. again, because
You heard it here first. Katie Donnelly, after school sports specialist. Katie Donnelly, no former athlete, never an athlete. After school sports specialist only.
exactly.
Yes, you now understand me. I feel like
Yeah.
I've met you all over again for the first time.
Yeah. But you see what I
Yes.
mean? Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
like it was a cool like went to like state championships, but like again, my school No. But for like 6A, whatever the smallest high school was.
But my team went to the state championships, not me as a member of the team.
But you have to, again, there was like 45 kids in my graduating class in high school, which is a big
You
feat.
played in
Go
Did you ever
Coyotes.
play in a state
But-
championship game?
Yeah.
Get out of my room. Get out of my
But I think
podcast
but I
room.
think again, like I wasn't like I don't know if I absorbed that as an identity. I also was like number
Have you ever
this is a fun fact. I
have you
always
ever reflected
bust
on
out.
this before?
I always bust this out of like fun fact. I'm always like, I got third in the state of California for horseback riding in my class of horseback riding that I did.
Third in the state of
I
California.
was also like 13. But
I
again,
won state championships when I was 13. And what would you say about me?
I didn't absorb it as an identity. Like, you know what
Are
I
you
mean?
sure you didn't?
I mean, I probably did subconsciously. That's why everybody knows about it. So maybe this has turned into my therapy session.
Yes, this does. This is the point of this podcast. See, you thought you knew the point of the podcast.
No Former Athlete is a podcast and soon-to-be documentary all about starting the conversation around loss of identity after sport, how that impacts us all in very different ways, and check in with retired athletes to see how they're doing. How are we all doing? Make sure you subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Instagram at No Former Athlete for more daily content. Let's get back to the episode.
And I think identity in this world is so interesting. I mean, it's similar to identity in sort of any, facet of life or industry. I think there's also purpose, right? So like being an athlete, you are training for something. So you're always training for the next game or the next tournament or the next thing, right? And so that gives you a purpose. It gives you a goal to strive to. And then when you decide to leave that life behind, some people are lucky enough to have that be their own decision. Some people are not as lucky, and that decision is made for them, whether through injury or through coaching decision, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like where a lot of athletes find themselves. How do you claim a new identity? What's the next thing now? And also, like, life isn't structured like it is on a team.
Nope.
And so it's like finding your way that way as well. I think too, there's also a lot of like, there's a part that's like, I've had to also let it go.
Yeah. Have you
Because there's-
dissociated from your history
Yeah.
as an athlete because of the space that you work in?
No, not because of the space
Okay.
that I work in, probably because of other like outside life childhood experiences of just
Got it.
like having to make a decision between like choosing between pursuing horseback riding, let's say, or soccer, or like pursuing like at some point my mom, very rightfully so, was just like, I can't drive you, like you are doing too many things, you need to pick one sport. And so it's like I think part of that has been like shedding of those identities
Yeah.
as a kid,
Yeah.
and then also knowing
Because they were taken from you early, out of
I'm-
your control.
yeah,
How do you feel about that?
I not anything that I can say on a microphone that's recording. So we'll just leave that at that.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, I think that circumstances in my life have just
Yeah.
been like, I knew that I was never going to go to college. Like I
Yeah.
like, that wasn't necessarily a dream of mine. My dream very quickly in high school, because of some injuries that I had,
Yeah.
was like, I actually love the sport. My mom was a nurse. And so like, I was really engaged and like into the medical field pretty
Yeah.
early. And so I knew that I always wanted to either go to like med school or do PT or do athletic training or, you know what I mean?
And then your next step was kind of going to school for athletic training. And then you were put back in that space.
Yeah.
And like you were saying earlier, like that felt so right.
Yeah. so that's kind of how I came into my profession. And then I do remember like the first day of my first clinical rotation, my first year in the program, and I was working football. And I called my siblings afterward. I talked to some of them, and I just remember being like, this is what I was meant to do, which is really cool.
That is
and
really
so it's
cool.
like finding the purpose in that. So I don't think that I consider myself an athlete, but like I clearly have an identity in athletic training.
There's a big part of support staff, people that work within athletics, within sports medicine, that we're drawn to it because they are also athletes.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think there's also the camaraderie. I mean, there's it's like all the soft skills
Totally.
of it, or like all the, other things other than just like winning and performing. It's like camaraderie. It's like problem solving. It's working on a team. It's like having a collective goal, or like this collective drive as one entity towards something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
And
so you don't find that in a lot of the, like, yes, corporate places, yes, people, try to create a team, for people that are then, are athletes and then go on to work other places, like, oh yeah, I'm really good at teamwork, because I've always had to do it. But without being still working with an actual sports team, being in that system, you don't find that a lot of other places.
Well, I think like in other industries, there's like individual merit. So you get like individual raises or individual call outs and praise. Whereas like on a team, it's like you either win together or you lose together. Like we're all in this together.
Yeah.
So it's like there's one result for all of us.
Yeah.
And no matter how much each individual puts in or not.
Yeah.
And then I did want to bring it back to like you mentioned something, people are like, people don't know how much I contributed or not on the court.
Yeah.
But like every seat on that roster is important. Like the locker room is just as important.
Totally agree.
As the court.
And I think that's why it has that merit, right? It's why it like holds that weight of like, I'm a national champion. People are like, okay, sweet. I like know something about you. I know something more, because you're exactly right. When you've been a part of a team system, you know that person that maybe never sees the court, the field, whatever arena you're in, is still just as important to the whole network of the team, and maybe more.
Sometimes the most important.
Absolutely. I fully agree.
Like morale. You can have like the best people on a team, the most skilled.
Totally.
But if you can't harness the energy.
No.
I mean.
Yeah. And if that person sitting towards the end of the bench can bring those people together, that's everything. That's everything. Where do you feel like you fit within that?
As an athletic trainer, as my role, I really try to hold space. Like I feel like the med room is like a sacred space, right? So like everywhere else, the athletes, people are wanting something from the athletes, or the public, fans, media, coaching staffs. They all want something from athletes, and like the med room, I don't want anything from them. Like they need something from me, like it's like their safe space. And so I think I fit into that as like a listening ear, or like a safe person to be exactly who they are or need to be at that time.
Yeah.
Someone who gets the stresses, who understands that there can be a big cost for an injury.
Yeah.
Mental, emotional, physical, fiscal. I feel like my role in the team, other than like my physical role of like rehabbing and treatment and returning to play and performance, etc., and like an integrative, collaborative member on a larger, higher performance staff.
Yeah.
But particularly to the athletes, is I try to make sure that like they are being like, I'm the person hearing them.
Yeah.
And like hearing all the layers of what they're telling me.
Yeah.
Right. They're like not just telling me that they're in pain or this hurts.
Right.
Like I also know that like that comes with the fear, which comes with the cost, which comes with the,
Do you feel like your experience as an athlete like helped you in that connection, or do you feel like it was integral to that, or just more like experience over time?
I mean, it's probably both. Like I think that my injury experience from my athlete days probably played into that understanding of like what does an injury actually mean to people and their livelihood.
Totally.
And also like the dark places you go to.
Yeah.
Like when you get surgery, there's a point in time when you're like, I'm on the grind and I'm tired of being on the grind. And then you're like, what if this never gets better? And then you're like, well, I guess I've lived a full career enough. Like, am I okay to just like, what if this just never resolves? And what if I'm like stuck like this forever? Like I have been there. And so I think that is more of like what has helped me kind of hopefully provide the support that is needed for the athletes and provide the care that's needed. Both like physical care and then like mental, emotional empathy.
You worked with, professional teams on the club level. You've worked with national teams as an athletic trainer.
Yeah.
So you've now been surrounded and you're working with them on a daily basis. If you're at a World Cup, if you're at, the Olympics, if you're there with the team, you are that support system that's needed.
Yeah.
And you go through those highs and those lows at the same time. I was at one of the games of the team that you currently work with the other day, and literally as I was driving home, I was just like, oh, Katie's just like hopping on the bus to drive back to the hotel. Again, for you, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. We're like in the middle of camp. I'm just hopping back on the bus. You're like, oh my God, if I get on
11:30 p.m. at night after the game.
I get on another bus right now. And I remember those days. Yeah. Like I remember those days of rolling in back to campus at 3 a.m. But like also in Erin's no former athlete body now and just like experience, I was like, damn, what I would give to just get on the bus, put my headphones on,
bingo,
like, lay back,
that's
close
literally
my eyes. Yeah. Like
that's what I do.
I know. But like also like what I would give to just like have that, no matter what the team is, no matter like who my teammates are that are getting back on the bus, just to be like, oh man, yeah. That feels so good. And then I'm going to get my bags, get out. I can like picture, I can viscerally feel it. So like you're still in that space.
Yeah.
You're still in that space as your job, as your occupation. You go through those highs and lows. And part of what this like whole podcast, the documentary that we're making along with this, that's No Former Athlete, that is Alex's journey, of reclaiming herself as a national champion and finding that national champion, drive, body, spirit, through her training of an Ironman. We were all talking about it earlier today that we all thought like, okay, the high is going to be completing it, finishing it, running across the finish line. Sometimes when there's that high, it's almost immediately followed by that low.
That low is so low.
If the high exists even at all.
Yeah, I know. It's so true.
Especially when you're predicting that high and you're like, yes, this is what I'm shooting for. I'm going. And then you get there, you're like, this is supposed to feel different.
So I think one of the things that I don't think I will ever forget this moment where like we had just won a World Cup, which was bananas and insane. And like, that's also a moment I'll never forget.
You won a World Cup, baby.
And so we all did. And then celebrated that night and then flew back to the States and then ended up Good Morning America. And then there was a big ticker tape parade down the streets of New York, which was like so incredible once in a life. Like it was just insane. So fun. So we go to City Hall and like the mayor speaks and then a couple people from the team speak. And then it was like, okay, like support staff, you have to like hustle back to the hotel because like the bus that's taking you to the airport to catch your flights is like leaving in like 30 minutes and you have to like hop the fence to like bust it back to the hotel. And so we're just like celebrating. It's been amazing. We have like confetti everywhere in our hair. We're all like wearing the same shirt. We're like sprayed with champagne. And then like we're like hustling back to the hotel. We like grab our bags and like hop on the bus. And like I just remember it was me and a couple of support staff from like all different departments, performance, analytics, comms, blah, blah, blah. Admin, and like the door shuts, the Sprinter van starts going, and like it's silent. And it was either me or someone else goes like, so that's it, huh? And it's just like dead silent, and we're just like, yeah, that's it. Like it's just like the juxtaposition was so stark of just like we just had the highest high of our lives, and then it's just like, done.
You were literally like, it was like France, get on the airplane, like fly
Charter back.
go straight to the
Straight to
ticker
the-
tape.
yeah.
Like
It was
you
like-
guys were just like bouncing.
And then I get to the airport and we're like having to like be civilians and like load our luggage onto the cart at like to the desk at the airport before security. And then
Like all of us mere mortals.
and then like I was just laughing with my friend and I was like, nobody knows what we just did. Like what we just accomplished, and also like the like 2.5 months that we just like the grind. And then I do remember like we had like a day in New York before the ticker tape parade, and so like we went to like Good Morning America, and then 2 of my friends, I was just like, we've been working for like over 6 weeks straight or whatever. And I'm like, I just want brunch. I just want like a I just want to be normal for a second. So I was like, we're going to brunch after Good Morning America. So like we did Good Morning America. We head to brunch, and then like our server comes up and he's like, hey guys, what can I get you? And I was like, I really want a Bloody Mary. And I start bawling. And then their server's like, are you okay? And then my friends are laughing. And then my friends are like, she's fine. She's just emotional. Like, we just had a really big life event happen. And then my other friend starts laughing so hard that she starts crying because she's like, oh my God, like, yeah, like a lot just happened in the last fucking month like this. And then what just happened like 40 hours ago? I don't know. And so then we're crying because I just finally ordered like some just Bloody like, Mary, which is like some semblance of normalcy.
Mundane.
But like nobody knows what we just went through except for us.
Yeah.
And so then... yeah, you have these like emotional outbursts, but then going back to like when we were at the airport after the parade, we were loading our bags, and like the woman behind the counter, the ticket counter, as we were like checking our bags, was like, wait, oh, do you work for this team? Like, can I have a picture with you? Like, my daughter's gonna love you. And we were like, oh my gosh, yeah, like somebody kind of know, like, okay, there's some recognition of like all the hard work that we like put in. And then we walked through security, and then all of us just like split to our flights. Like, we all don't live in the same place. I just remember like I finally got there. I was still in like champagne doused like confetti in my hair and a shirt on that, says what we just accomplished. And then I'm sitting in a regular old airport, and I look down at my ticket, and it's like row 36B. And I'm like, cool. I just like chartered a flight from France.
Yeah.
And nobody in this airport knows what was just accomplished, and it's like, what do I do?
Yeah. What did that feel like? Like,
it was such a come down. Like, it was so surreal, and it also kind of felt like I wanted to be like, I just did this like I was just part of this incredible thing, and like
you wanted people to know.
I wanted people to know, and then it was like I also didn't want to like talk about it or brag about it.
But you
I wanted
so
people
fucking
to
hard.
Yeah, we were so.
You
We
were so
all
fucking,
did.
You were so tired, and
we
you
all worked so hard.
Someone
it's
acknowledge.
Like yes, it's like
we
the
just
hardest thing that like I'll probably do in my career, and I also just like want some type of acknowledgement, and like, but then I also like don't want to because I also wasn't on the field. Yeah. I didn't score any goals. I don't score goals. Like, I just help people.
Yeah, and
so I just help people
score the goals.
Hopefully. But like,
you
know what I mean? So I also am just like, is this my thing to talk about? Like, I don't know. But then I'm like, but I gave my soul to this. And, it's a very weird space to be in, and it's really low. It feels really low. And then I finally like landed back on the West Coast, and then I remember being at home, and I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm zoning, and I just look up at my husband, who I haven't seen for a month plus. Yeah. And I just am like, I don't know if I need to turn music on and continue to like rage and celebrate, or if I need to go upstairs, like turn out all the lights and sleep for like 20 hours. I don't know. I don't know.
The body can't compute.
Yeah. So there is that, like, the come down is real, and then it's like a free fall. There's no support when you're done. Yeah. With something that you've worked so hard for. And so then you're like, okay, cool. My goal in my life was to go to a World Cup. And I'm like, okay, cool. I made it to the World Cup. Yeah. And then you're like, am I fulfilled? And then you're like, I feel like I should have been fulfilled. And I feel so empty inside. And like, what do you do with that?
Yeah, and then like,
Who-
why did I spend so much time and energy?
What's
and
this
effort?
worth?
I was supposed to feel awesome after this.
Yeah. And
I
then
was
you're like,
supposed to
I
be
guess
able-
I guess I just go on to the next thing. But like, what is the next thing? And then
Uh-huh.
there's nobody like talks about that space,
Yeah.
you know, and then you're like, well, I've reached my goal. So does that mean I'm done? Do I like move on to a different career? Like, I don't know. What do I do?
Yeah.
You know, it's like
Yeah.
I've reached the goal. Like, well, what's the next one? Because I thought I was going to feel different and now
Uh-huh.
it's not. Or like, what decision do I make
Yeah.
moving forward? And no one really talks about that. Like,
No.
emptiness that comes
After.
after.
Yeah. And I think too, whether that be after the high of one individual season,
Right.
One individual season with one team, or the high of said career. If you're a collegiate athlete, you know you've got those 4 years, but you know that's going to be done. So then it's like, okay, amazing. I had this great, successful collegiate career. Okay, I guess I just go do something else, and people are only going to know about it if I tell them.
Yeah.
Not everyone even has the ability or the privilege of having successful seasons or
For sure.
having a successful career.
For sure.
You know, there's so many different things
And-
that can
yeah.
happen.
And then you're like, does that change your identity
yeah. Do you,
as an athlete?
yeah. Do you relate to it differently? Okay. Do I almost like suppress it and move on
Mm-hmm.
to then function?
Yeah.
the normal
Right. In the
world?
normal world. How long do you ride the wave?
Uh-huh.
I'm always like, you're a national championship
Yeah, yeah.
champion, Aaron.
Yeah.
And you could be like, you're a world champion,
Yeah.
Katie. And I'd be like, no, not anymore.
Right?
Yeah, it's like, how long do you ride the wave? Because yeah,
Yeah.
forever. For you, I would be like forever. For me, I would be like, it never happened.
I'm like,
Don't believe anything she
yeah.
says.
You should wake up every day. I hope that picture of you and the team is next to your bedside table.
I honestly don't even know where my gold medal is.
yeah,
I
of
can tell
course
you.
you
I don't know.
because you have a fucking gold medal. Yeah.
But
yeah, tell me more. Tell me more.
I can't. I
But
don't know where it is. But that's all I can tell you.
Exactly the point though, right? To where it's just like,
Yeah.
wow, it's so much and it brings so much goodness and so much joy. But then you also kind of go into this like, okay, I kind of have to stifle it so that it doesn't control everything.
Yeah.
So that I can move on without missing it all the time, you
Right.
know, and like without always searching to have that feeling again.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay to be searching for that feeling, you know, but it's like finding it in different ways.
Yeah.
We don't talk about what happens after.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when stuff happens.
Mm-hmm. It's when, for a lot of people, like there's this perception that life finally begins after. And one thing that I've noticed in my 11 years of working in professional sports is like there's this almost like belief that life will start once you retire. You can have kids when you're done playing. You can change your name, like the name change on the jersey happens when, you know, you retire, and now you can like step into your new life when it's like that has sort of been for many different reasons from society at large and other systems that sort of perpetuate that outside of the sports world. But there is this notion that like traditionally, like everything is focused on like sport, and that sport is your life. And nothing can really happen outside of that. I think the other thing that's unique specifically in the professional level is that like it is hard to separate that, or it's hard to sort of wrestle with this fulfillment outside of your identity as an athlete, because so much of their off-field life, essentially 24/7 of their off-field life, is revolved around supporting their minutes on the court or the field or whatever sport they play on, because what they eat, how they sleep, how they recover, can they go on hikes, can they even do other sports, can they ski? You know, if they're not a skier, they can't really ski, because then what if they get injured and then they can't play on their season and whatever. So I've noticed with the athletes that I've worked with, it's hard to find another identity outside of being an athlete when you're in it, right?
Yeah.
And so then
Yeah.
when you're done with that part of your life, where do you go? And I think the other hard part is like we're in a world of social media right now. So athletes have their own brands now. So it's like you
Totally.
got to build your brand. In order to build your brand, you have to keep playing. And in order to keep playing, you have to keep being healthy. And then it's like you always have to kind of think about like even things like investments and like what's their next career going to be because, you know.
And then
that's
they're almost like starting to try to plan and build that while they're still playing.
Yeah. And so then.
But to be prepared for the next, which in a sense is kind of good that that's starting to happen because they're starting to realize like, okay, there needs to be next chapter, you know, so it's a little bit of kind of like, all right, we're starting to think more about it as a whole versus, you know, in the past where it's like, oh, like straight cut off and then people don't have something ready for them.
Yeah. And I think too, like in the traditional like corporate world, let's say, like people are applying and looking for other jobs and industries all the time. And I think in the sports world, it's sort of like a bubble where that is your means of income, in addition to, you know, other sponsorships and stuff that come with being a professional athlete, let's say. And it's just a unique bubble. Like so many people change their jobs and their careers all the time. Hopefully sometimes they're prepared for it and sometimes they're not, like outside of the sports world. And same thing happens where it's stressful. And then there's also this like mental health piece of like, how do you want to leave, you know, your legacy, your imprint on the game? When is going to be your last game? And then what if you have a shit performance?
Yeah.
And how does that not define you? You know, it's like, I think the other hard part too is like the defining moments. People can go back and like replay games, right? So that's the other hard part is like, you can't really do that with like a different industry. So I think you're also sort of battling those pressures of defining moments. And it's hard because, you know, I can sit here and be like, you know, you get to choose what moments define you. But then you're like, society also chooses, unfortunately.
Also, all the people sharing it on social media will
you're like,
will decide
there's
if it's
also
important.
that layer of pressure. And so like athletes nowadays are growing up and leaving this world of sports that is about the sport, but also has so many layers of pressure.
And where does that kind of interact with your identity with your sport, right? Because it all started with this kid,
For
right?
sure.
It all started with this kid who started playing their sport, and then they're good.
Yeah.
They're good. And they train and they keep playing and all of that. And then in the case of people who become professionals, you know, they become professional athletes. And now all those things that is just them and their personality and how they, you know, thrive or how they, you know, work in different situations is how they present to the world. And is now they've got their identity piece. They're actively, you know, having this presentation to the world, all of that. And then they retire.
Yeah.
In one way or another. Whether it's when they wanted to, whether it's earlier than they wanted to. We hear from them all the time when they're on the court, when they're on the field, press conferences, and they retire. And so often we don't hear about it as much anymore.
Yeah. There's a certain level of value that they offer society, right?
Totally.
As an athlete. It's entertainment.
Absolutely.
It is the platform, right? And so it's like there's also, I would imagine, I'm not a professional athlete myself, but like I would imagine when you leave that world and that platform that the sport has also given you and this identity and all of that, it's like the struggle or the desire to find value in what you bring is a little different now.
Because what are we practicing for?
Yeah. There are no statistics anymore. There's no
stats.
objective winner or loser. There's no objective tournament to win or not win or come in second. There's no ranking. There's no nothing after this.
Yeah.
And now you're a civilian again.
Yeah.
I've been on teams and each season, like, people get traded.
Yeah.
New people come on. You're like, we will never have this team as it is now again. And that is still hard. And the next team may be as great. Maybe it'll be better. But, like, there's still a grieving, like, process to go through with every change in life. My perspective isn't – I'm not speaking for anybody that's been a professional athlete. This is all just the feelings that I have about the world that I'm in.
Yeah.
But people think that, like, life begins after you're done.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you go through this? How do you go through this industry, this job, just like any other job, while also having your life And now there are limitations, right? Like you're traveling a lot if you're a professional athlete or
But the years are still passing.
the years are still time
like
continues.
everyone else's lives,
And
your life is still passing.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that change now. Like there's a lot more support for female athletes. Like for example, like pregnancy.
Yeah.
There's like a lot research is coming
Getting
out
better.
now, and its support around it is better.
Yeah.
The system around the support is better, and like you know, I think I attest so deeply to that because I think I've been doing that in my own life, to be completely honest, of like putting my life on hold, not necessarily with kids, but also I have no kids right now because I don't want to have kids.
Yeah.
As I'm traveling so much because and so I think there is a sacrifice that has to happen inevitably. But I think that I have realized that I've definitely put aspects of my life on hold.
Yeah.
You know, because of the industry that I'm in.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh man, can I have the life that I want and do my job? And or is this the life? Like maybe I am doing the life that I want.
Right.
You know, so it's like also grappling with all those questions is so real. And I imagine it's the same as the population that I work with because I'm feeling it on my side and we have the same schedule.
Right.
So like,
and even that, like you said it too, where it's kind of that, all right, there's this thing, it's kind of the high and the low that we were talking about, you know, where it's like you're working towards this thing, it's the high. And then once you get there and maybe it doesn't feel like what you think it's going to feel like. And so it's like, well, once I'm there, like that's the goal. That's what I was working towards. So like, why doesn't it feel better than what it feels like? So in that same way, when people are putting their life on hold, life on hold, and then it's like, okay, I'm going to retire so that now I can do all those other things.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, well, fuck, this doesn't feel like I thought it was going to feel.
Or like, why did I put this on hold for so long?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Or like, I've just sacrificed my soul for achieving this one thing. And then you're like, I thought I was going to feel different. Or like, it was super cool. And then the come down is super hard.
Yeah. And then you were
and then you're like
36B.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like,
it
was like the highest high of my life. And then also juxtaposed with like, I am back in society
Go sit
immediately.
your ass by the toilets.
But it's like, oh, was it worth it?
Yeah.
Like, is this life worth it? Because I've sacrificed a lot personally too, with friends and family and my beloved relationship with my favorite person in the world who has like held down the fort at home, and he's like living our best life, you know, while I'm here also living an aspect of my best life for sure. I would never want to take away any of my experiences that I've had with my professional career. I've been so amazingly blessed, and I like am standing on the backs of all of my mentors and all the people that got me to this point in my career, and I'm so thankful for that, and wouldn't want to give up any of my experiences because it has pushed my capacity past anything I ever thought I could do. And there is a mourning process that I'm like, and I'm missing like all my friends' birthdays at home, or my friends' weddings, or like all of my nieces and nephews and siblings, and my parents, and like family reunions. And then I haven't talked to like very close friends for like 2 years because I just
there's
so much
You're
that I'm
juggling
missing.
so much.
I miss my dogs, you know, and so there is just a lot to sacrifice too in this world, and it's like finding it's always just reflecting on that like push pull of like I want to, like the both and happen in this world.
Yeah. So that fills you in one bucket. But then there's also this
other
other
buckets
piece
that like aren't being filled either. And so I just imagine it's the same for the population I work with, because like, again, we're living this very similar lives, you know? And so, yeah. I don't know. It's just tricky. It's a tricky subject and needs to kind of, I think, be talked about more. And
totally.
And
I feel
we
like
gain a lot and we sacrifice a lot.
Yeah, that drive.
You got to compartmentalize a little bit too.
Totally. Great
I'm
point.
interested for you to like talk to more athletes about this, to like get their experiences. There's a belief that like you have to look back on it with rose-colored glasses.
Yeah.
And there is an acceptance to have that experience that few people have.
Totally.
You can be super grateful for that.
Totally.
and not take it for granted.
Yeah.
And you can grieve. Like, it's still sad
Yeah. Yeah.
that you don't have that anymore, and you won't have that in the same way again. And that's not a bad thing. It's probably healthy.
I believe it is.
Well, I'm just avoiding everything, which is why I don't know where my gold medal is. So I'm probably the wrong person to talk to about this.
Hey, at least you're starting to acknowledge it. And maybe next step is going and finding your gold medal. Let's make sure we know where that is in the future. Katie, it was so good to talk to you about all the things.
Oh my gosh, thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review. You taking that 5 minutes makes a huge difference and helps us to be able to make more episodes like this. And if you want to see more content in between the episodes, follow us at No Former Athlete on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. I'm so glad you're a part of this No Former Athlete community. And if you know any No Former Athletes that you think I should get in touch with, DM me on Instagram at No Former Athlete. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.